Hey guys, before I jump into this CAD4CAM on making an L bracket, I just want to ask you guys, don't forget to like this video if you guys learned something. Also, leave comments down below of different projects you've had that you want to see done in the CAD4CAM series, as well to always get the latest and greatest updates to include the release of the machining of this actual bracket we just designed. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well so that you always get the notifications when we release new content. Now let's go ahead and jump into it. So with a blank file open, the first thing we always want to do to make sure we get our tracking right is we want to save what we're working on. So this is going to be my billet L bracket. And as you can see, I also like to double verify that my timeline is on. If your timeline is not currently on, just right click and click capture design history. Obviously mine says do not because we've already got it turned on. So let's go in and start our sketching process. So there's a million different ways to sketch something, but we're always going to start with a sketch to get to a model to create that component at the end of the day for manufacturing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to say create sketch. Again, we already have a component. We're just drawing one body in one file. This is not an assembly in any way. And I'm going to pick my plane. So me personally, I don't care about what plane I draw on because we can reorientate that later for manufacturing. So I'm just picking a plane, and from here, if you guys haven't caught my other videos, I absolutely love using rectangles. So much that the hotkey is R, or you can go to your timeline up here, or you're not your timeline, but your toolbar, and you could obviously see that you could pick a 2-point rectangle. So I'm going to hit R for rectangle. We are doing a 2-point rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my origin and drag outwards. And then again I'm going to click a second time. So here we misclick. We can always hit escape, then R again to drag upwards to create that rough shape of what we want. So now a lot of you notice I don't like to dimension my stuff until I'm ready to actually turn it into a part. So let's go ahead and now add our dimensions after the fact. So I would like my L bracket to be 1.5 tall. I would also like the bottom to be the same. So we're going to go ahead and type in 1.5. I want this to be a thickness of 3/16 possibly. So I'm going to type in 3 divided by 16. And then the backside, again, we're going to do 3 divided by 16, or as I like to do is just click that dimension that I want to tie together. And as you can see, that D3 populates automatically, creating that shape in profile. So once you get your initial sketch of what you want, we're going to go ahead and finish that, and then we're going to extrude it. So again, we did a 1.5 tall by 1.5 wide. So given our actual motor or whatever we plan to mount to this is also probably going to be 1.5, we're going to go ahead and type that 1.5 in and create our 3D model. So now this is the part where a lot of people, not to say panic, but they kind of lose the idea of sketching. So even though we've created a body, we now want to subtract things from the body or cut and remove. And to do so, we're going to drive that with a sketch. So again, as I'm going to go into my sketch tool, I'm going to pick the face that I want to sketch on. I'm using the inside face, and the reason for that is had I used this outside face, I would have to be self-conscious of where this actual inner thickness is so that I don't actually put anything on there. So that's the only reason why I'm doing it. Again, all of you can pick whatever method works best for you. But now let's go ahead and put our actual through hole and our mounting pattern on here. So again, as I'm going to say circle, again, I like to be very generic with what I'm doing. So we're going to go ahead and put a basic circle here, another one over here to the left, and then we're going to use some lines now to start to construct where we want everything to be anchored to. So I'm going to go ahead to the line tool, and then I'm going to do a construction line. And the first line I would like to do is I'm going to do one straight down the middle. So if you see midpoint to midpoint, that's that little triangle, as well as you get that little right angle for your actual 90 degree. So that gives me a center line for that circle to work off of. So now I can pick center point and drag it over and snap. I have to be a little careful of where that snaps to because as you're seeing here is we are referencing that to the midpoint. So if I release too soon, it's going to lock it down to that. And it will make this next step, which would be is in the event that I want to dimension this from a certain edge. So I'm going to go off the top edge and I would like that to be 0.625 from the top. I wouldn't be able to do that because that actual midpoint constraint would be getting in the way of this. So if you guys did have that issue where you can't dimension that, it's all traced back to the fact that that midpoint constraint is probably in your way, and you'll see a little triangle right here if you put your mouse on that center point. Looks very similar to this triangle up here. So again, as we're going to add another dimension here, I would like to actually make this again 625 through hole. And then from there, I'm also going to dimension my actual circle here for my bolts to go through. And in this case, they're 3.5 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and type in that 3.5. Now, this isn't fully constrained yet. And the reason for that is if I hit escape and then I grab that circle, I can still move it all over the place. So again, we can cheat this by using a line based on construction, and I could drag that line out and connect the center of my two circles. Well, currently, it's not perpendicular, and you can see it's kind of all over the place because we misclicked and added two lines here, not one. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to Control Z back up, and then I'm going to reconstruct that line. Again, we're going to go center to center, and now as you can see, we have one line here. However, that line is just literally a line between 2 points. It has no reference or no constraint to control that line to be perpendicular. So we can actually constrain that. So we're going to go up here to the top. We're going to say perpendicular. I'm going to pick that first construction line, my second construction line, and just like that, it is now snapped down at 90 degrees from my vertical line. If I grab that circle still, I can't move it up and down, but as you're seeing is I can move it in and out. And that's because we're still missing a dimension of how far from center do we want. So again, I'm just going to place this at a 1/2 inch from center. And now we have that all set up. So if I wanted to do the same thing on the other side, I could do a lot of work to sketch that all in. However, what I'm actually going to use is the mirror tool. And we're going to say we want to mirror said profile across center line. And we can hit OK. And now the neat thing about that is if this dimension was to change, let's say we go 550, you're going to notice that other circle on the right side of my screen also has updated. So now that we have our profiles here that we want to use, I'm going to go ahead and extrude those. So I'm going to pick all three of those, and we're just going to drag them through our part. Another tip here, if you guys didn't know, is if I wanted to go all the way through, but I don't want to drag it, I can always pick my profiles. So let's go ahead and undo this here real quick. So we're going to grab the three profiles I want. I'm actually going to cancel that tool and do a brand new extrude. There we go. And if you guys were wondering how I got there so fast last time, it's because I just hit E on my keyboard for extrude. But as you saw me do, I just clicked the back face of this, and it automatically drugged those profiles all the way to that back face for me, creating those through holes. So now based on the bottom, we're going to go ahead and add some slots. Obviously, this is going to slide along, give us a little wiggle room. So let's, again, create a new sketch, pick the face we want to sketch on. And again, I'm going to, right off the start, go ahead and throw a line on this because what I'm going to draw is going to be mirrorable across center. And from there, under the Create tab, I have what's called a slot sketching tool. So the very first one is center, center, slot. So if I say center point, so I am left clicking while I do this, and then I drag it out and click, you're going to notice it's very faint and very hard to see. So let's get that body turned off. But we made an accident again. It's okay, guys. Is we made this a construction line slot. So one thing we can do is you can actually hit escape. I'm turning that body off. I can grab each line individually. So I'm holding control while doing this. And I can hit the X key on my keyboard, which also toggles construction line. Now, the other way I could do this is if I actually Control Z here, we're going to go ahead and back this up just a hair until it disappears. But if I over here on the right turn off construction, and then I go to the top and I go to the drop down, and we're going to say slot again, center to center. And now this time you're going to see that hard profile, or in my case, it's a blue line. It's going to be a blue line on your screen if you're working with the actual white background of Fusion. But again, the idea is let's get the profile and then let's constrain our profile or do whatever we need to do to sum up that profile. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab my dimension tool. First dimension I'm going to add is the thickness here, or the width. Again, this is 4 millimeters for our stepper motor mount. I now can add in the length of what I want. So again, it's up to you which way you guys go about this or what dimensions you use. I'm going to say 3/4 of an inch. I do want this a certain distance from center line. So again, we're going to add that in. We're going to go 0.5. And then I would like the starting point of this to start from a certain distance. Again, I'm just using either points, lines, or edges to set these. So let's go ahead and say a 1/4 inch off this backside. And as you're seeing, all my lines are turning white. Yours should be turning black as they're fully constrained. Again, I have just a different background on for my parts. That's all I'm working with here. But again, as we've now fully constrained this to the point, and I'm going to drag this dimension up, which you can click and drag dimensions, guys, to get them out of the way, maybe to see them better based off what you're working on, all up to you. So again, we've created that first initial slot. Now, normally I may mirror this, and mirror this based off the fact that I'm using the sketch. However, I'm going to show you a trick that sometimes you want to do certain things as a solid versus certain things when you're doing them inside of the sketch. So let's go ahead and extrude this. Again, I'm just picking that bottom face to pull that all the way through. And then from here, if I turn on my origin, you're going to notice my origin's way down here at the bottom. So this isn't going to help me because I want to mirror this across center of my part. So what I can do is I can actually go to a construct plane and I can say mid plane. And now if I pick two faces on my part, what's going to happen is it's automatically going to give me a plane between those two faces. So now that I have that plane between two faces, I can now do a actual mirror inside of my model workspace. So again, as I'm going to skim my list here real quick, there is mirror. Again, if you guys didn't know, there's also the ability with S key. And then if you start to type whatever you want, you can pick it this way as well. But we're going to mirror an actual feature. And what that feature is, down here at the bottom when we extruded that slot, I'm going to go ahead and pick that extrude. And then I'm going to pick my mirror plane or my surface that I want to mirror across. Again, that's just based on that construction plane that we made. And as you're seeing now, we actually have that slot come through. So the neat thing with this technique, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my construction plane so we don't have to look at it. But in the event that I back up in front of that mirror, or let's not back it up yet, I'm going to actually add a chamfer here real quick to this top edge. We're going to go ahead and throw on a 20 thou chamfer, and I'm going to hit OK. But now with that chamfer, you're going to notice it didn't mirror, right? And the reason why is because in my timeline, I never told it to mirror after the chamfer was added. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to click that mirror and drag it. But now again, it's still not happening. And the reason why it's not happening is because when we declared our features, we never declared the chamfer feature. So again, as I just double clicked mirror, I'm going to hold control and I'm going to click that actual chamfer now. And again, let's go ahead and hit OK. And just like that, you can see I can actually bring more than one feature across when I mirror these things inside of my assembly. So a few other things I may want to do to this real quick, guys, is let's go ahead and throw some fillets on here. I'm going to grab these top two corners, bring them in just a little bit, give it a nice round profile. Again, because we are working with that 1.5, I can go all the way down to 0.75 or 3/4, just giving that a much cleaner shape and profile. Again, at this point, it's starting to get pretty more than it's getting functional. But that's about it for being able to draw a very simple L bracket, with the exception I still want to save this, of course. But as you guys can see, it's rudimentary simple to create simple sketches, constrain them later on, as I like to say, working with modeling clay. And then with that, create sketches on different planes or different faces to create your geometry in more or less different views.